Hi guys, it's Amy with Think to Plan, and today I am going to be breaking down this guided journal. Okay, so in this video, I am going to be showing you how I break down all of my planners, guided journals, notebooks, all the things from the Happy Planner for storage. And so whenever I pick up something new, the very first thing that I try to do is make a decision on whether I'm going to use it right away. And if I'm not going to use it right away, then I don't put it into what I consider like my active area of planners and journals. It's going to go into storage. And so if I'm putting something into storage, I like to keep it a little bit more condensed. Obviously, people leave it on the rings, on the discs, and can store it this way, but I find that I just don't tend to go through all of my planner supplies and look individually if I'm looking for something to use later on in the future. I would prefer to be able to use it or like look through everything by category. So for example, I store all of my planner, guts, inserts, all the outdated stuff in its own separate spot. I store all of my paper, like the lined paper, dot grid, and graph paper. I store that in a separate spot, and then guided journals I store in a third separate spot. And so I try not to leave things in this form just because, then I would have like hundreds of, notebooks and planners, and I just wouldn't know what is what. So I do like to break it down when I'm not using it. So if it's something that I am going to like straight away use, I'll just leave it like this on the discs and just put it into my active area where all of my planners and journals for 2023 are, or like whatever year I'm in, I'll leave that in the active area. But if it's not going to be used right away, then I do break it down. So I do have separate areas for covers, for discs, for dividers, and for each of the different types of paper that the Happy Planner releases. And so what I do is basically start off by taking this all apart. And so this video will be me taking it apart and showing you with guided journals in particular, there's this different way that I do it. And so if you want to see how I do this for other types of like things from the Happy Planner, I can certainly show that to you. I think paper, like notebooks, I think that's self-explanatory. You take off the covers, you take it off the discs, and you store the paper because all the paper is going to be about the same. And then for planners, what I like to do is I have kind of my own system for that, but I like to pull all the monthly pages, the page that comes the second half of the month. I store all those pages together. Then I put all the inner pages, the weekly pages that are front and back weekly pages together. And then I put like the page with currently at the very end. And so I do sort it out by design as well. And so that is kind of how I do it for planners. But for guided journals, because there are so many different types of pages that come in here, I'm going to show you this setup or like this breakdown. So first thing I did was take off the covers. Again, I do store my covers separately, but for the time being, I'm actually going to leave this set of covers like to the side because I plan to try to use this cover like fairly soon and kind of update my system a little bit. So that's the first thing I did. The second thing I do is just kind of take everything off the discs because I should flip it over like this. Okay, so because I want to be able to store the discs separately, I want to, just go ahead and get everything off the disc so that way I can kind of get that into its own box. Now, I had a question recently, and I'm sorry for the noise, by the way. I had a question recently about how I store my discs, and you guys, I like pretty much keep it really simple. Oh, this is way too much paper. One more full. So I keep it really simple. I basically just put it into a shoebox, like one of those like cheap plastic shoebox boxes. Shoeboxes that you get from Walmart or Dollar Tree or whatever. It's just a giant box. I have one for each color, and I'm thinking of doing an updated like kind of craft tour video for 2023, showing you my craft space. Since I've moved into a new house, I've been kind of organizing it and doing my thing to get it set up the way I want it to, and it's finally like to the point where I've cleaned it up enough and organized it enough that I feel like comfortable showing it to you. So anyway, I do store the discs now that they're all. I do store the discs in that box, right? So those are the first two items. And then I normally at this point would pull out dividers, but I like to pull out dividers at the same time as like the paper. So just to show you how I do this, I just basically go through each single page and kind of put them in its own spot. So dividers right here. Then you can see this page says this month's focus and big goals, and the back of it is the habit tracker, so that's going to be a separate page. And then this page is this week's goals, and the back of it is like one of the daily pages, essentially. Okay, so that is like at least the first three stacks. Now this one is main goal for today and main goal for today, and this is basically what I consider like the double-sided daily page, and so that's going to be my fourth. Hopefully, kind of sort of see that my fourth little section. Now, when I break down guided journals, I don't worry so much about like putting the prompts together. I just want to have double-sided pages that are like the daily pages, right? And so this is another daily page. And again, like I don't worry about the prompts. I just make sure that they're both like double-sided. Okay, so this one has main goal for today, that one has main goal for today, and it goes there. Now this page says monthly goal check-in. It is not one of the pages that I've already got. And then the back of this says this week's goals. So this goes here. Now, I'll pause right here and just say that this is one of the things that you find with some of the guided journals. This one, it's not this one, sorry, it's this one. Some of the guided journals will be where the pages are like matched up and you don't have quite so many categories, but sometimes you get guided journals where like this is the same page, but you can see that this one's on the left hand side and this is on the right hand side. So for me, that to me is kind of a little bit annoying, just because then it causes like all these extra categories when I break it down. But you know, you just live with what you've got. I think, you know, and so I just break them down, and this will be a separate category just because I don't want this to be in the same pile. All right, and so then it goes back into basically the daily pages. And so this stack right here of daily pages, the double-sided daily pages, will be the largest stack, right? I probably should have done this without my nails, but like I did get my nails put together. So then this one is this, what is your main goal for today? And then the monthly goal check-in, right? And I'm just doing a quick scan of all the titles, and this is another category. All right, and so then this one is this week's goals, which is this page right here, right? And it's the same on the back, right? And so this will match up. And then I just kind of do this for the entire thing. Now, when I break down guided journals, I've talked about this in some of my like older previous videos, but like it gets to be where there's some days where I want to use daily pages. Like I just want these like front to back daily pages, and I just want to use those pages. And then there's some days where, you know, I'm okay with kind of like putting together or piecing together my own how would I describe it, like my own kind of guided journal with fewer prompts. Oh, I'll pause here and say this is like a double-sided like dot grid page, and so this is going to be like a 6th area, so I gotta move some of this stuff out. But going back to what I was saying, some days I want to just use the double-sided pages, and some days I don't want to use that. And so by breaking it down like this, of course you can absolutely leave it together, but I like to break it down just because, like, to me, sometimes it's a little bit easier for me to be able to find exactly what I want. Like if I say, you know, hey, I want a double-sided page, then I know exactly where to go to get that. Instead of having to get it, pull it off the shelf, flip through a couple of planners just to make sure it's the goals check-in sheet that I want. You know, and so to me, it's just a little bit easier. Now, maybe it sounds like super complicated, and maybe it is, maybe I'm just being extra, but I just think to me, it's just something that benefits me, and I find it to be very helpful for me to go ahead and break it down. So that's just my thought process, and you know, how it works for me. And so I am putting all these pages together. I'm going to go ahead and finish this. I'll fast forward through this because basically it's the same thing. I'm just like figuring out where it goes in which spot it goes, and then we'll come back once I finish the last 2 months of it. Okay, so I am done sorting out basically the entire guided journal. The first thing is that we will have these dividers. And so now that the dividers are separated, let me get this one. This will go into my divider storage, where I keep my double-sided dividers. I love to use these to basically create journals and, you know, to divide things. Like it sounds, but like because they're blank, I can just label them really easily, and it doesn't have the calendar on the back, so I like to keep my double-sided dividers kind of separate. So that's the first thing. And then there are a couple of pages that are, like, to me, the things that I would probably be more likely to use. And so the first one is like these 4 sheets. These were at the, like, basically the page that was right after the divider, but so there are 4 of them, and it says this month's focus, this month's big goals, and then it has the monthly habit tracker. And so each of the divider sections had one of these sheets. So there's 4 sheets of that. And then this sheet is kind of like the matching page, but it's just the dot grid, right? And so again, there are only 4 of those. And then the rest of these, there are more than 4. So it ended up like, as I was doing it, I kind of noticed the pattern where like it would shift from these 3 styles, and kind of depending on where it was in terms of placement, it would be either this page, or this page. So yeah, that was interesting. So I think there are like 8 of each of these. But the first one here is, it says, this is your main, what is your main goal for today? Basically, this is a daily page, and then the back of it is this monthly goal check-in. And so again, this is one of the things where like I don't really love it when they have it like this. I'd rather it just be like double-sided daily pages. But like I would probably use this, but then like what do I do with this side, you know? But anyway, these are all these pages, and I'm just double checking really quick that these are all those pages. Okay, yes. And it does look like 8. All right, I'm not gonna count it like right this second, but that's there. All right, so that's one of the pages. Oh, I'll actually do this one next. All right, this is the same comment that I had about this page, if I can get it, where like the one side of it is like the daily page, right? One side of it is the daily page, and then the other side of it is, I'm trying to like clean it up a little bit too, right? Is this week's goals, right? And so like this one is the daily page, and then the back of it is the monthly goal check-in. This one is the weekly goals check-in, right? And so, you know, it's different. But again, it's attached to the daily page, right? Which to me, it's just like, wow, why is that? Why is that? You know, but Happy Planner doesn't make it easy to print a plan, is basically my point. All right, so anyway, then there's this page. This page is the monthly goal check-in, right? And so it has the monthly goal check-in. It's the same as this page right here, right? But on the back of it is this part of it, right? And so it doesn't have the daily page on it. So this is the page that I would really want to keep and use, right? And the way that it would work for me is like these pages with like the daily page on one side, I would either like glue together and use it like that. But these pages that don't have the daily page, I can kind of put it together and have it be like, if I pulled one of these sheets, one of these sheets, and one of these sheets, then it would be this month's focus, followed by, if I could turn the page, the habit tracker, then the goal check-in, this week's goals, and then just like a dot grid page, right? So it just to me makes sense to have it like that. And you know, sometimes I just, you know, like writing daily pages, like having daily pages on your goals, I feel like is kind of intense, right? So this is just an easier way of breaking it down and using the pieces that I feel like would be, to me, more useful, right? And then the last little set, I think, is fairly obvious, but it's going to be the daily pages that are double-sided, right? And so again, I did not worry so much about putting the prompts together. It's just all the pages that are the double-sided daily pages, right? And so I'll fix this up and kind of put it. But then what I do now is basically store the double-sided pages separately from all the rest of this. This is the stuff that I would actually probably be more likely to pull. And so I leave this stuff separate and put it into like basically a box of prompted like guided journal type stuff. And so I would leave that there, and then this goes into basically what I consider filler paper. And so I know it's kind of weird to consider it filler paper, but like because it's like the same front and back, I think of it as filler paper. So like just like lined paper or dot grid paper, whatever, all the guided journals that are like the daily pages, I just consider it filler paper. That's just how my mind works. So this goes into filler paper. This goes into my guided journal area for me to kind of use. And that's how I break it down. I also, of course, already did the dividers and the discs and the cover, and those go into their respective areas. And that's how I break it down. Now, I know this might have seemed like it was a lot of work, but I really find, to me, it is much more useful, and it's much easier for me to find things if I break it down beforehand, and instead of like leaving it in its like current state, or like in like the state I find it when I like purchase from the store. It's just more beneficial and just easier for me to find things when I break it down ahead of time, and kind of already make the decision of what I would probably use, and like put it and categorize it and store it and organize it in my storage in a way that makes sense to me. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. Don't break down your planners if you're, or your guided journals if you feel like this is intense and overwhelming. I just personally think this is, to me, easier to find and use things. But if you think, wow, this is just a little bit too much, then, you know, definitely don't do it. So, but I do think it's important to go ahead and categorize your stuff. So if you leave your guided journals in its intact form, make sure that you're categorizing and putting them together with other guided journals. That for sure is like at a minimum what you should be doing. Instead of mixing it in with planners and things like that, have a separate section for guided journals. So again, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to my channel. And until the next video, bye guys.